Hi guys, Artem here. I wanted to start a new segment where I talk about everything that happened in digital marketing last week. My idea is very simple. I will go through all the important news when it comes to digital marketing and in general when it comes to entrepreneurship in internet space, everything that I consider myself relevant, and I will create a segment, right, for it, and I will publish it on Monday. So basically the idea is very simple. I have to anyway keep up with the news, right? Because that's my job, that's what I do, and that's why I'm still relevant, and this is why my customers basically do business with me. So if I have to do it anyway, I might as well make it useful for you guys as well. So basically every Monday I will try to put out an episode where I talk about everything that happened when it comes to digital marketing last week. So yeah, if you want me to do more of these episodes, if you have any suggestions, please do let me know in the comments box below. That's it. Let's get started with our first episode. Google made it official. Responsive text ads are in and expanded text ads are out. Well, not really. So now by default, when you go to create a new textual campaign in Google Ads, the default format will be responsive text ads. And if you don't know what responsive text ads are, don't worry. Basically, before you used to create traditional text ads in Google Ads where you had a title, description, and so on. But now Google is pushing for responsive text ads, right? And responsive ads have been around for quite some time. I think debut was in 2018, so it's nothing new. Now Google is just making it more, well, they're pushing it a lot harder now by making it the default option when you create your Google Ads campaign. You can still create expanded text ads by just choosing it in the ad type, but by default, Google is trying to get you to use responsive text ads. And responsive text ads basically are the dynamic version of the traditional textual ads, where every single headline and description is considered a separate asset, and Google then goes and kind of mix and matches them. So instead of creating one ad with title, description, and then URL, you create multiple titles, multiple descriptions, and then Google tries to optimize it using artificial intelligence, machine learning, and fairies somewhere running in the background. They're trying to kind of mix and match titles with different descriptions and so forth, try to get, the highest possible CTR and best metrics. Yeah, I guess nothing new, but now responsive text ads are the default text ad type. Finally, Google has added ability for you to add Google Analytics 4 to your Google Search Console. What does it mean? Well, many of you, just like me, use Google Analytics Universal and Google Analytics 4 side by side, right? Google Analytics 4 is still not supported everywhere, and at least until now, you couldn't really link Google Analytics 4 with Google Search Console. Well, now you can. Basically, it means that it's not going to be long before Google will start to deprecate Google Analytics Universal. It's coming. So if you haven't installed Google Analytics 4 on your site, or you maybe haven't even thought about migrating to Google Analytics 4, now is the time to do that. Again, it can be a very soft transition. You can, with the Google Tag Manager, you can run Google Analytics Universal and Google Analytics 4 side by side. So when the time comes, you'll be able to just disable the tag Google Analytics Universal in your Google Tag Manager, and that's it. It will be pretty painless, right? So now is the time to get invested in Google Analytics 4 if you haven't done so. Google's John Mueller had a really interesting discussion on Reddit about positive and negative impacts of having keywords in your domain name. And now we have it, guys. John Mueller said that there is no positive benefit of having keywords, your important keywords in the domain name. So basically, if you have a domain dentist near you or something similar, right? Something that you are trying to optimize for a specific search term or keyword, there is actually no benefit of having that keyword or search term in your domain name. No SEO benefit, at least, that is. And he also advised you to actually look in for the long-term impact, right? To have actually a brand name you can use, something that people will remember, and so forth. So if you're thinking about buying a domain name and you're thinking about keyword stuffing, you are thinking about how to make the domain name as SEO optimized as possible, don't do that. Google says you shouldn't, and I doubt there is a huge benefit of having something like dentistnearyou.com. So don't do it. Google has announced top 3 priorities for Google Ads in 2022. That is automation, measurement, and privacy. I wonder why privacy is such a big focus in 2022. Not. Anyway, Google mentions that over, or at least 80% of all advertisers in Google Ads are using automated bidding. So I guess they're seeing that there is a clear benefit of not managing bidding themselves, and also it allows the use of automation tools. So Google will be using and expanding on the automation tools that they have already introduced, which will be interesting to see how does that work. Some of you might be using outside bidding automation and optimization tools, such as, for example, AdSpert and many others. So it's interesting to see how Google will improve their own bidding automation, and will it be able to compete with offerings by other companies. We'll see. Another thing that they want to focus on is measurement, so expect changes to conversion tracking and so forth, and obviously privacy, so expect changes when it comes to consent, tracking, and so on. It's going to be interesting, and if you are interested in the subject and you want to learn more, see the link in the description. Microsoft has added 29 more countries to their Microsoft advertising platform. That means that they have added access to 40 million more users on their platform, which is pretty awesome. If you haven't been using Microsoft advertising platform, you definitely should. Sure, Bing is not as popular as Google, but Bing is gaining popularity, right? A lot of people have Bing installed by default in their browser, and in many industries, due to security settings, you can't really even install a new browser, so you end up using Edge and Bing by default. But in Bing, CPC costs are much lower compared to Google, and what I really like is that Microsoft actually realized that they're number 2, right? At least they're honest about it, and they have created a lot of tools that allow you to import your marketing campaigns from Google Ads to Bing Ads, right? Which is really, really cool. And usually customer acquisition costs are much lower in Bing due to the lower CPC costs. So it's definitely something you should try if you're already doing Google Ads and if you're in a very competitive space. Only thing that they have problem with is that their market share is just not big enough, right? If you get Bing Ads to work for you, the only problem that you will reach is that there are not enough search volume, right? That's the only problem. But Microsoft is obviously doing something about it, and now they're adding 29 more countries and 40 million more people to their Microsoft advertising platform, which is cool. And if you sell your products and services internationally, that'll be really, really nice. If you want to see what countries are added to Microsoft advertising platform, see the link down below. Google has released Google Data Studio template for web stories. So if you didn't know, there is a format called Web Stories, and it's shown in Google Search and in Discover, which is a which is available in Android and iOS applications. And basically, web stories are full screen tappable experiences. I think they came from AMP stories. And basically it's something that Google is trying. It's similar to, I guess, Canvas or those kind of like landing pages you could and can create in Facebook when you're creating mobile ads, right? It can, so if instead of clicking on ad and going to a website, it actually opens a full screen experience in the Facebook application. So, right, yeah, something like that can be done with AMP stories. And Google has now came out and created a template in Google Data Studio so you can analyze your web stories and you can see how they're performing. So if you're an early adopter, I haven't seen it yet in any of my client projects, so I don't have any experience with web stories, but I'll be really interested to hear if you are using web stories and have you seen any meaningful change in your SEO ranking or in your traffic. And now let's go quickly through social media news. So, Snapchat introduces new attributable mid-roll ads for Snap Story. So if you have or been doing advertising on Snapchat, you have a new type of ad to play with and see how it works for you. TikTok Brand Safety Center consolidates transparency updates and announces partnership. Again, not much for us, but something to keep in mind. And Facebook is dropping news from the news feed and is renaming newsfeed to just feed in order to avoid potential confusion. Well, yeah, I guess that's news, right? And YouTube is fighting misinformation once again and is evolving and outlining their way of fighting that misinformation. So if you're relying heavily on YouTube and talking about current events, it might be worth checking out. Then we have new metadata for educational videos on YouTube. So if you're doing educational content on YouTube, you might want to look into new metadata because it might provide additional edge compared to your competitors on the platform. And again, the more information you can give to Google, the more information you can give to YouTube, the better your chances are for ranking. So again, potentially a positive impact. And we have Instagram adding likes to stories insights in order to help you gauge your viewer engagement. Again, something really good for you if you're doing Instagram. And LinkedIn is adding new elements to services listings in order to help freelancers generate business. Again, you'll be able to add more information to the services tab on LinkedIn company profile. So again, that might help you get a little bit more visibility. And Snapchat is also letting users update their username from February 23rd. So if you wanted to change that username and you couldn't, you will be able to do that soon. And Twitter is launching new bot labels to identify bot accounts in stream. So if somebody is using bots to generate content on Twitter, you'll be able to see that. I guess they're probably using like API. So basically, if the tweet is coming through the API channel, they will most likely just label it like a bot or something like that. They just want to make sure that you see that that content didn't come from a real person. Again, it might help a little bit. You will be able to weed out bot accounts, or it helps them fight misinformation. Yeah, we'll see. So that's it for social media. Thanks to the recent update, you will now be able to pull Google Business accounts call history using their API. Why should you care? Well, Google Business account can generate quite a lot of leads, right? If your business is a offline business like a hotel or maybe a restaurant, co-working, whatever that is, Google Maps could be a huge opportunity for you to get leads, right? And Google now created a new API where you can pull that call history information and you can import it to your CRM so you can see which lead actually came from Google Maps or Google Business. I think that could be really awesome, and I'm sure CRM companies will now rush to add this functionality to their systems. Let's see who will be the first. As if geopolitical situation wasn't serious enough, here is another kicker. There has been a huge vulnerability identified in Magento, beloved open source e-commerce platform, now part of the Adobe family. The critical vulnerability is so severe that if you use Adobe Commerce or Magento, please run. Don't sit, run and make sure that you're patched, right? The vulnerability is so severe that it actually could lead to some tremendous problems, such as losing access to your website or getting hacked and so forth. So if you have Adobe Commerce or Magento e-commerce platform, run. Ask your developers if they are aware of the situation, if they have patched the software, and just make sure that you're okay, because the vulnerability ranked from 1 to 10 has been ranked 9.8. Pretty serious stuff. So that's it. First episode of last week in digital marketing. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and please provide feedback. This is the first episode, and obviously I will be evolving and improving the format, but we have to start somewhere, right? Again, this is a great way for me to stay up to date and to share that knowledge with you guys. Have a wonderful week.